at the European level, the cost of energy is hurting our businesses. We need to figure out a way to reduce that. And that requires, again, massive investment.
Today, I have the pleasure to welcome in the studio Christos Floros, who is a European Parliament candidate. Welcome, Christos.
Thank you for having me, Joel. Thank you for doing this.
It's a pleasure. So Christos is a 30-year-old candidate and he belongs to the DP in Luxembourg. So if you vote for him, you're actually voting for the Alliance of Liberal and Democrats of Europe. And just for people who might be confused, this ALD is also a program called Renew. So I hope you will explain to us all the intricacies of this European governance. So let's jump right into it. What are your main priorities for those European elections?
Well, that's an excellent question. I want to start with something I thought about while I was driving here. I was driving on my nice car and I was looking at these beautiful luxury cars that we have in Luxembourg. And then I saw an accident on the road. It didn't look very pretty. And I thought, what a great, unfortunate metaphor for Europe. We're all inside a beautiful German car driving in a beautiful highway, but it takes one moment to crash it all, and then there's no going back. This is where we're at this moment in Europe, and the biggest priority we need to have is to communicate that to people.
That we're going to have a crash?
That it's the real possibility, and unless we change the way we're driving this union of ours, we are going to crash.
Okay, so can you give us detail of which elements would make you think that we are on a dangerous road?
We haven't realized the issue of security is not one that can be a secondary afterthought. For a very long time, we relied on our American partners.
Yes.
And it's very clear that the priorities in Washington are shifting, whether there's Biden or Trump coming in November, the priorities will shift. Europe needs to be able to defend itself. We have an issue in communicating how urgent this is to people outside the Euro bubble. That's why one of my priorities is communicating what happens at the European Parliament, what its scope and limitations are, without overpromising to people what the European Parliament can achieve. But defense is something we need to take seriously. Our group is proposing a massive investment in defense to ensure our security, and that is a multi-tier objective, which means, yes, investing in defense and investing in military cooperation between our national armies, but also investing in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, we saw recently the attack here in Luxembourg of our public services. That was not a real attack in the sense of an attack that disrupts crucial services, but that was external actors trying to show us that they're capable of attacking us.
It was just a small start.
Right? So they are telling us whenever we want, we're able to disrupt our services, your services, right? So next time it might be a hospital. You might go to the hospital and the staff won't be able to look at your records. That is crucial. If you're about to have an operation, they need to know your record, right? If you're calling for an ambulance and the system's not working, or even now in Luxembourg we have apps to locate you even better. If you're calling for an ambulance and the ambulance center is not working, that's a cybersecurity issue. And that's the same thing for all things across our supply chains, whether it's in healthcare and the military, or just in our very goods. What we saw happen during the COVID-19 pandemic, when we didn't have enough stock of items on supermarkets. Imagine if that was happening deliberately because we were being attacked.
Of course. But the main question, of course, defense, military, and in terms of cybersecurity. But of course, we look at the debt of countries. In your group, you've got France with a debt which has passed now 100% of GDP. So how do you finance all those extremely expensive arms, weapons, IT programs?
We have an incredible finance industry, both in this country and in Europe. We've got really great bureaucrats at European level. And my group is proposing borrowing from ourselves. We want to give European citizens the possibility to own European debt to finance this transition. It's not just for defense, it's also for the ecological transition. I very much believe in that. And I believe in that because I have seen firsthand how the European Union is able and capable to finance projects. Here in Luxembourg, we're very lucky because we have that accessibility towards these huge agencies / institutions. You've got the EIB and the EIF. I am not a politician that pretends to be an expert at everything. If you put me in a room with 10 people that have worked for 10 years in finance, collectively they have 100 years of experience financing, right? I'm not going to go into that room and tell them how to do things. I'm going to go into that room and ask them, tell me, my priority is to finance X, Y, Z. Tell me how we get it done. So I think that's also, and that's not just a personal thing for me, I believe that's something that describes our group, that describes our party. We go to the experts, we trust the experts, we want to work with businesses because it also works with the overall umbrella of priorities that we have, which also includes reindustrialization and business competitiveness. You gotta be able to listen to the people that have been doing this and learn from them. And also, it doesn't just mean learning from the people that are right now working within these services. They also have know-how that comes from the outside. So whether it's in the States or what's happening in Asia, we need to listen to these people and ensure that we are capable of financing the ecological transition, our defense, and all the European strategic priorities that we have.
Perfect. So if I follow you well, first you want to explain better, communicate better what is done at the parliament, for example. You want to strengthen defense, would it be by weapons financing or cybersecurity? You want to reindustrialize. Any other priority?
Well, the last one ties into it, right? And it for me, it really is a matter of national European security. And it ties in with communication and defense. And it's establishing once and for all a European public broadcaster. Right now, we have influence from American media, but as we said, their priorities are shifting. They're still our greatest allies, but their priorities are shifting. So they're not highlighting the issues that are as important for us. Then we have media from countries that are friendly, but have completely different priorities, as some in the Middle East, that run very capably media that influence a lot of Europeans. And then...
So which one do you have in mind, like Al Jazeera or which one?
Well, yes. Al Jazeera has a very different agenda, right? So
of course. But also every, like France has got his own news channel invented by Sarkozy.
So the thing is, unless we have a source of news that Europeans can go to and trust that these news are relevant to them, then we have an issue in being able to inform all Europeans in a way that helps them align with the priorities of Europe.
So you want to create a CNN or an Al Jazeera of Europe?
More like the BBC of Europe, just to be precise. Right?
Yeah. Very good. And of course, a good point about what you said about financing and television or broadcasting is that these are very strong expertise from Luxembourg, of course.
Absolutely.
Very good. So let's talk maybe about issues. You talked already about defense and cybersecurity, industrialization. Let's talk a little bit about competitiveness.
Okay.
We know that Luxembourg, of course, is a very interesting case with the indexation. I'm aware you're not running for local elections, but Europe also, with all those new regulations, it's getting more and more difficult to, the cost of business is growing very fast, much faster than in America. So how would you like to make Europe more competitive?
Well, the party is proposing establishing a commissioner to simplify administrative tasks. And I'll ask you a question as an owner of a business yourself. Does it make sense that small businesses sometimes have to employ more people in compliance than the actual business?
Yeah, we know the issue. I mean, in my company, it's okay, but there's a restaurant very close to here. And I was talking to the owner very recently who basically told me she has to spend 3 hours per day just to remain compliant when she should be buying and cooking. So we all know that regulations are not synchronized. They just come on top of each other. Sometimes they contradict each other. I think Ms. Verstager is in charge of simplifying already a little bit. So you want to add one more?
I think, yeah, well, she's in charge of ensuring, yes, competitiveness, but in another sense of the world, ensuring that there's no monopolies, breaking them up as well. I think what's really important is to ensure that our businesses are able to thrive in a world that's changed drastically. yesterday I was speaking with a country representative of an important company here in Luxembourg, and they were telling us the cost of energy. The cost of energy for us is a huge issue. Now, at a national level, which affects all European countries, we all know that even smaller businesses will have a huge price to pay come end of the year, right? But
yes.
at a European level, the cost of energy is hurting our businesses. We need to figure out a way to reduce that. And that requires, again, massive investment in renewable energy, ensuring renewable energy is made available to these businesses at a rate that still allows them to do their work. And then we need to ensure a level playing field, because we're setting ourselves the highest environmental standards in Europe, which is great, right? I want to have a planet to live on. I want to have children one day. I want them to have a planet to live on. But we got to make sure that our partners, our allies around the world are also playing by the same rules. And so that goes back to Europe being able to have a global voice, right? If Europe doesn't have a global voice, we're not able to influence other countries having the high environmental standards that we'd like them to have. And so we lose ground. And then you see countries like China committing to transforming their economies vis-a-vis sustainability, but setting a 10-year gap between our goals and theirs. So we're saying 2050 carbon neutral. They're saying 2060. These 10 years of difference for global businesses, that could prove, I'm trying to avoid using a very drastic word here, but it's not something that we want to see happen. So we got to make sure everyone's playing by the same rules if we want to remain competitive.
Yeah, and that's going to be a difficult one. Maybe a few points about this. I think we import 89% in Luxembourg of our electricity, which is a big issue. Another point, of course, is Germany, which didn't have a plan B, so it's being under terrible pressure right now. And you're absolutely right that until December 2024, the government is still subsidizing a lot of our bills, but you're right that normally January 25, the bills will go up as long as the inflation and the energy costs are so high.
I'm glad you're mentioning Germany, because I want to go back, because you mentioned Germany now, to the car industry in Germany. And there's two things, right? AI development,
yes,
and then the ability of German cars to compete on the global marketplace.
Absolutely.
So I mention AI because we're leaders in legislating, right? Setting the rules. We set the AI Act, but we also need to be able to ensure that we are encouraging companies here to develop AI. We cannot afford to stay out of AI dev. If AI is not including European perspectives, European worldview, European cultural norms, we're going to lose our ability to influence how decisions are being taken when so many decisions will be taken assisted by AI. So
absolutely. I recommend a great post yesterday from Joël Elvinger from your party about AI and regulation. You can find it on LinkedIn, which pointed at all the difficulties that Europe is facing right now. So definitely a document you all want to have a look at. Let's just finish maybe with the risk and the opportunities. And we talked about your priorities. So where do you see opportunities? Let's say you manage to control the price of electricity, unleash innovation, reduce the regulatory burdens. How do you see the opportunities and how do we get them?
I want to say that there's going to be opportunities ahead. I still believe Europe's days are ahead of us, but I also want to be cautious and not overpromise unless we're able to do these things that you just assumed we get done.
I hope.
Right? So unless we manage to do that, then it's harder to look at these opportunities. The opportunity is there, though, for Europe to play a stabilizing role in the world. You have the emerging superpower that is China. You have a superpower that is the United States. The trend lines are clear. The biggest opportunity for me is for Europe to be able to finally step up, to act as one on a global stage. Because the biggest opportunity is the same peace that we have guaranteed for the last 70, 75 years in Europe. I want Europe to be able to influence 75 more years of peace on a global stage. And that's something only Europe can do. I know it sounds, quite general, but we have taken peace for granted. The trend lines are very clear about what's happening. Powers like to test each other. We don't know what's going to happen in November in the United States, but whatever happens...
We kind of know.
but whatever happens, the truth is American foreign policy is going to change.
Absolutely.
Right? If there is, if there's more attention in the Pacific vis-a-vis Taiwan, it means that there's less attention here. Erdogan in Turkey is testing us, seeing how much he can
he's in
consider
the crossroad.
Right? So we're seeing even within our alliances, our current security alliances, people wanting to test each other. I want to look at the opportunities, but the biggest opportunity is to consider, to continue strengthening the European Union to ensure peace, security, prosperity for our people. After that, I want Europe to innovate. I want Europe to sustain its ability to pay people well. I really very much look forward to everyone being able to read what Mario Draghi is going to report, unfortunately, after the European elections. I was lucky to be able to have a little preview of that from some friends here in the institutions. I think it's very important. I hope that regardless of what you decide to vote on the 9th of June, and obviously I hope you choose to support us, read the report that Mario Draghi has prepared. There, he will outline both opportunities, but also what pragmatically we need to do for Europe. Because before every election, many of us will come out and do these wonderful shows and talk, and thank you again for doing it. But the truth is, even if we sound different before the elections, I think the majority of us would agree that the positions that my party, both in my country and at the European level, are a way of having consensus in Europe. So let's hope that more people are willing to admit that, because we need consensus more than ever. Because I want to talk about opportunities, but what I'm seeing right now every day when I wake up is the far right bloc, a bloc that's not going to offer anything to the European Union, right? Dusting off, the dust comes into our eyes and we just pretend like we don't see the challenges that are there. So for me, the first opportunity that I have as a hopeful is convincing as many people to believe that we can still achieve
together.
Yeah, and also to believe that Europe is still able to have agency both for itself and in the world.
So two big takeaways I take from what you just said. It's important of working together and staying united, because you are right that Europe is now fighting in a way also economically with major players like, of course, the US, but also China, also India, also Africa. It's everywhere. And you also mentioned something that was, I think, very important. You mentioned the influence, maybe restoring an ability to influence some agendas, because as you said, we're very aligned with America right now. And as we've seen over the past months, the relationships are getting more tense. And you're absolutely right that by influencing positively the relationships, as Luxembourg does with basically all over the world, we can get things done easier. So I wish you good luck and thank you very much for your time.
Jean, thank you so much for having us. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.